This is chapter 2 of Hard Times, and Hard Times is about a transgender prostitute living in the 1980s, and a serial killer is preying upon her community, and no one is doing anything about it. So she takes upon herself to find out who the killer is, and it's been controversial because it has a lot of slurs in it and a lot of gay and trans jokes in it, but it's just satire and ridiculousness is all it is. It's not meant to be taken seriously. If you take it seriously, it starts off in the bowels of the poorest part of the city of Milwaukee in the late 1980s. There lived a loving and motley circle of faggots and queers. That was intentional. Set him up with this nice line and then hit him with the faggots and queers. And just, you're either going to go, oh my God, or you're going to, a lot of people are doing that, but you're going to either do that or you're going to be like, oh, it's pretty fun. I meant it to be, that's pretty funny, and to weed out a bunch of, but I caused it too. So anyhow, regardless of all that, we end up, chapter 2 begins where May has just killed an officer, a police officer in the alleyway, because the police officer insulted her and her dead friend about the serial killer, and she was furious, and she hit him over the head with a bottle, and her friends are in the alleyway trying to figure out what's going on. So it's called The Bitch Loses Hiff Scent. This is part 2 of Hard Times. The Bitch Loses Hiff Scent. May came out of her trance. Oh, oh, she was about to scream, oh, again louder, but Jeff put up in her hand in time for him to stop Drakely. He grabbed her hand and pulled her away from the trash can and spun her around. The three of them stood in front of an officer from the dumps who was going to be pretty upset when he woke up and would definitely be needing some medical attention. They all had their mouths open in varying degrees of openness. Leroy shuffled his feet over the drop-off point of the fire escape and grinned. Dalton knelt on the ground and put his hands on his face and cried hysterically. Jeff grabbed Dalton's shoulders, jerked him up quickly, and pulled him inches away from his eyes. Get it together, babes, Jeff said to him. Dalton sputtered and locked eyes with the love of his life and whimpered in horror. Shh, shh, Jeff whispered to him and rubbed his arms with his hand. Dalton, you have to get it together. I promise you everything is going to be all right. Shh, we have to protect May. This eased Dalton a little, and he stood up and put his head down, still looking stupid. May had collected her mind by now. It was twirling ferocious. He has to be going to be okay, she said aloud. I was bleeding more than that when the Negro with the 12-inch dick raped me in the porta-johns at the fairgrounds. Hey now, Leroy said, sounding sarcastic. May looked at him and widened her eyes. It's okay, May. You know me. Leroy was talking about never telling anybody what he saw, and not about the word Negro. No one was offended by May using the N-word. She was raped badly by a big black man, and May wanted to choose a word that let people know how she was really that mad. Of course, as everyone knows, when a black guy has a 12-inch dick, you have to give that the respect it deserves and call him the N-word. Black guys also insist on being called that word when they make love to where all the white women's at. May stepped over with 3 long strides and tried to not look at her bullseye. She stood beside him, pulled his right arm up with her left hand, and with her right, planted 2 fingers on the underside of his wrist and felt for a pulse. Frantically, she moved her 2 fingers about, pausing, waiting, hoping. Nope. He was dead. She thought about her new life and how it was going to get very strange. How totally from out of left field, unwillfully crazy, things kept on happening to her, a used to be him. When things got floofed up, they got floofed up way lots real quick. May looked behind her at Dalton and Jeff and turned around and hightailed out the opposite direction where she came. Yup, said Leroy and hopped down off his metal perch to flee. I love you, Leroy, May said loudly, but soft enough so no one would hear it in the streets. You too, boo, he responded softer. Dalton and Jeff walked out of the alley behind May, Jeff holding onto Dalton's arm and whispering in his ear. They turned left where May turned right and shuffled down the back street to Jeff's apartment. Dalton used to have his own place, but he loved Jeff and wanted to be with him for half the day or less. Of course, when they were lying in bed together, that time didn't count. They went upstairs to their 3rd floor flat and took off their shoes in the bedroom. Jeff nudged Dalton in the direction of the bathroom. Dalton was already thinking of taking a shower, but Jeff's nod was saying, You go first, babes. Dalton began to undress and waited outside the shower while the water got hot. When Dalton saw the stream, he knelt down and adjusted the water slightly too hot, just like Jeff liked it. Jeff sat on the bed looking at Dalton as he took off his clothes. Dalton had such a cute tush. Jeff drew a deep breath and asked himself what did he do to deserve such a nice young man. He loved him dearly, He hoped they could keep the chemistry they had set forever. Dalton was in the shower now, sobbing. His voice echoed through the bathroom like a bad pop song. Breathing in deeply again, Jeff walked into the bathroom and stepped into the shower to comfort Dalton. Jeff in the stall, Dalton stopped crying. Jeff pushed Dalton to the side for a bit and got under the perfect temperature shower. He wiped his face with his hands spread in the streams. He stepped aside and let Dalton finish. He looked approvingly at him as Dalton remained strong, focused on the fundamental gay task of washing his ass. Finished, Dalton rinsed off and left the stall and dried. Jeff kept the door of the stall open, careless of the wet, looking at him, smiling. After their shower, they eased into their queen-sized bed to relax in the comfort of 400 thread count queer Egyptian cotton sheets. Jeff spooned Dalton, whispering and nudging his ear with his nose. After a long while of cradling, Jeff thought it was about time to talk. He gathered some courage, knowing he was going to have to speak to his younger partner firmly. He knew the responsibility he had was great. Dalton looked up to Jeff, and, lacking confidence, but instead of taking advantage of this, like a lot of lovers, Jeff was trying to make the love of his life into a stronger person. Where most queens, especially older ones, will want to keep a meek, good-looking man all to themselves, Jeff wanted his younger partner to grow. Nothing would make me happier than in 6 or 7 years when you grow tired of me, you have the self-confidence to go out and get anyone you want, Jeff told Dalton. After they met, when they were getting more vulnerable and falling deeper in love with each other, Jeff understood the weight of their friend relationship. Since Dalton sometimes looked at Jeff like, what next? Jeff would never have to take advantage of Dalton when he was in those vulnerable moments, open to suggestion. Dalton, I'm going to need you to go ahead and listen to me on this one. Okay? That would be great. Making fun of the office manager that used to live in the space next to them always made him laugh. It was a perfect joke to ease the tension and shoo away some of Dalton's jitters. The bed shook with their giggles and creaked with their laughs. Jeff eased back into serious mode. What you saw tonight was horrible, babes, he grieved. I know I wasn't crying, he said as he began to sob, but I had to remain calm for you as an example. And the person right now that needs the most protection is May. You heard what that filthy pig said to us. You've seen how May feels about Tina and Tim and their tragic deaths. Any police officer brings something up like that to hurt a person deserves to be hurt badly. Everyone here is scared now. There's AIDS, crack, the economy, and now a serial killer we have to find. I would have done the same thing May did. Think of it like that. Dalton looked away pensively, then back at Jeff with a nod. We're hated now in Milwaukee more than the Negroes even. What do you think they will think when they think of trans... He paused. Transgender, Dalton reminded Jeff of the word May liked to use most. Yes, trans booty cooches, Jeff said. They are hated worse than any queer subset, Jeff said, forgetting all about bisexuals. Everyone thinks they are weak, so we have to be strong to protect May, the strongest of their kind. You can never say anything to anyone about anything about tonight. If you do, it will destroy her life. She was a rock under us now in these hard times. Dalton, you have to admit, anyone that calls a dead woman out like that to her best friend deserves what that pig got. Well, at least the bottom over the head part. I know, the other part. I know it's ingrained in your head now. Just whenever you dust it over in your mind, think of how funny it was, the baton thing in his thingy. He stuttered, letting Dalton know it was indeed appropriate for him to laugh at that silly image of a beat cop and his butt. They laid down and cuddled. Their relaxed bodies melted their souls into the sheets. They slept as they always did, completely relaxed, naked, and deeply asleep. In that alley early the next morning, a trash truck found Brett Buckley, just as May and her crew had left him, dead in the trash. Officer Weaver, the chief pointed. Yes, Chief, Weaver said. Get me the footwear impression kit. Weaver left. The chief was leaning over a small muddy spot in the asphalt of the alleyway. The chief looked at it, a funny, weird shoe print. Weaver returned with the impression kit, flopped it on it like a pancake, and smooshed it over the impression, sponging it into the back of the print like mayonnaise with a tongue depressor. The kit contained a handle thingy that Weaver worked into the top section, moving it back and forth lightly to press it all the way in more easily. Above, a policeman set his feet together and jerked his left hand and watch up inches in front of his face. This position he held until the mission was complete. The cops were all silent. No one joked. Buckley was still in the trash can, covered now in a tarp. Van was sent to get a tent so they could take proper pictures of this extraordinary event. They used a yellow van because the silver pickup with the son was driving all crazy with his lazy eye. The coroner's assistant lifted the tarp up a bit. A team of 6 officers held 3 sheets in triangle formation around Brett's lifeless body so no one could see the scene. The assistant had insisted on taking some fluid samples and temperatures. The cops cordoned off 2 blocks around the crime scene so the locals couldn't gawk. Ding! The officer timing the event said as he lowered his watch and forefinger. Weaver had lifted the imprint with the plastic handle thingy part and turned it over so 6 officers could see it, 2 of them looking upside down. The chief said. Fuck that. Special technique, he jizzed. Everyone was silent and looked around blankly. They formulated what they thought they should do. The chief had already made up his mind. He was waiting on a few of the others to look so nervous to announce that they knew, too. The chief was looking at the left lower heel portion of the print. All relax soon, knowing everyone got it. The chief spoke. This is a pretty big shoe print for what looks like woman's footwear. He turned the handle and rotated some more. When the heel was pointed up as his chin and cocked, he said, At least we have the type of print that points to the exact set of shoes. The chief was looking, eyes 12 inches away from the booty print, in the clear direction of a chip on the heel. Now tell me, the chief went on, what do you all think about this special unique shoe print? He inquired. The crew was silent. Finally, she was 6'4" and a fag, one of the officers joked. The chief stayed silent, stone-faced, and looked forward, waiting another try. A duck, the chief thought in his head, to pass the time with the horrible image of Buckley booty baton that was straining his brain. The chief loved Monty Python. After a while, Camp House joked, It looks like one of them come fuck me boots that some of them queers wear. Exactly the conclusion I had, the chief surmised. But let's not round them all up yet. I don't think any one of them, including that pesky Maynard, are capable of killing a police officer. But I don't put it past any one of them to turn a trick in the alleyway now while looking at the dead officer with his hiney hanging out of the trash can, especially Maynard. She hates us now that old friends have died. She doesn't seem to understand that they were all drunk while they were swimming in the Milwaukee River at night. The cigarette burns on their faces were direct as a result of all the butts floating in the river. The normal ones were robbed and beaten to death. May didn't understand these facts and was super mad. One more thingy, the chief said, wringing his hands. This print was done shortly after Buckley was thrust in the trash. He tried to be as vague as possible in an attempt to get the image of Buckley's body out of his mind. It stopped raining right before Buckley was probed a bit too aggressively, and this print isn't scarred with rain droplets. Weaver, pointed the chief again, go over to Buckley's place and see if you can get any information. Look at phone calls, messages, and items which could point to who Buckley was hanging out with before his untimely end. An officer done like this must have made some enemies. Pardon me. Camp House reached into a box of bags at the bottom of one of them's police officer's feet and wrapped the print up after several pictures of it were taken. Blinkett, the chief shouted. Blinkett rushed to attention in front of the chief. Go give the dump truck driver that found Buckley's body a slip of information. Blinkett marched over to the city utility worker and scrawled on a little yellow pad. He sideways scrawled on an unusual-looking, light-color, lined notebook. Officer Blinkett, CN 1984, FTS PBR 8008. He ripped the slip out of the plain-looking pad and handed it to the dump truck driver. What does CN mean? The truck driver asked plainly. Case number, the officer said, yepers. And what the hell is this fine print down here at the bottom? What the hell is right on rain? No, that's Right in the Rain, a company that the government has a contract with. They sell specialized tactical stationery. I used to be in the Navy, stationed in Iraq with the SEALs. It's real cool, man. You can write on this paper in the rain, on the toilet naked, or underwater even. They gave me a whole box of them when I was stationed in Iraq. But I wasn't with the Levy plumbing unit of the SEALs, so I didn't use many. I was deployed in the desert with the janitorial unit, vacuuming up depleted uranium tips in the sand. I'll sell you one if you want. Only $10. That's a steal. Of course, you'll have to buy a special pen from their website to actually write on it in the rain. No thank you, said the dump truck dude. Okie dokie, Blinkett. The chief wanted Blinkett to get rid of all those pads he had. He let Blinkett pass out all the notes to all the public and other policemen. He let him try to sell the pads even when everyone he came in contact with, even when he was on the clock. All the others officers understood. They didn't want it to look like their police precinct was in the government waste as much as the armed services were. Officers, the chief punctuated. They all looked. One of them, a young officer fresh out of class, said, Yes, Chief. His name was Carley. Why he wanted to be called Carly, none of the other officers knew. It was an odd name to add a Y to, unlike Jim or Glenn. Carly was a strong officer, but his wrists were as thin as a Twinkie. His voice and hands were soft, and he smelled like cheap lotion all the time. He was always rubbing it in with his hands. It helps me shoot my gun, he'd spurt out. Man, he sure can shoot. He liked to wear mirrored glasses and loved to work with the trustees. He'd shoot turtles and birds with his gun as they picked up cigarettes and kick rocks, bitch. Stationed all of my trusted and most trusted officers out on patrol. I can explain this to them later. Everyone else needs to come to a meeting at the precinct in 2 hours. I'm going to go to Carol Lee's house and stuff my face hole. Later. I'll meet everyone at the station. After stuffing himself in the burg and drinking a little too much coffee, the chief got a call on the radio. Chief, you have to get over here right now, Weaver said at the end of a black walkie-talkie. The chief fired up his lights to his Lincoln and swooped through the streets to Buckley House. He didn't think it was important enough for him to play the siren. He looked to the left, and it was entirely clear that the arcade theater was on drama fire. Thinking of now how everything now was very strange, the chief charged into Buckley's apartment, where a couple of astounded officers waited for him in Buckley's bedroom. The chief had brought Carly with him to Buckley's house. He was going to his gut, thinking that Carly was one day going to be one of his most trusted policemen. No, Chief, just you, Weaver said. Weaver was holding a large cardboard box in the left-hand corner of the room, out of the way of the window, looking pale and breathing heavy. No, it's okay, the chief assured. Trust me, Weaver, his family is real rich. A lot of the officers thought Carly was a little soft for an officer. Some even thought he had sugar in his britches. But he looked so tough in his mirrored glasses when he tapped with his cane, signifying someone to bring him the bolt for his rifle. He didn't speak much too often, but when he did, he was always talking about how much he loved his titties, cupping his pecs with his palms as he was raved in the mirror. He had to be straight. Grab that, he told Carly, nodding at the cardboard box in Weaver's arms. Carly grabbed and snatched it over to him and the chief, looking in the chief's eyes like he needed permission to view the box. The chief's mouth parted. He bit his lower lip. It was Carly's nod, he thought, to look down. He looked down. In the box was a bunch of personal belongings, wallets, purses, keychains, cigarette cases, hairspray, condom wrappers, crack vials. Some things looked like they had blood on them. When he saw Tina's ID and what looked like a used condom with blood, the chief handed the box back to Weaver. The chief slunk, deep in thought, and sat down on Buckley's bed. Normally he never sat on anyone's bed but his own. He looked down at the 70s creepy shag carpet and shrugged. Really? He asked and looked around the room. Buckley? He whined. Who knew? Buckley hated queers and made sure everyone knew all about it. I'll get you to look at the other box we found under this one, Weaver said, as he closed the box and set it on the floor. He pointed to the other one, marked Yum, scrawled on it with a black magic marker. The chief looked scared. I know, Weaver said. You've been through too much today. Don't look in the box. I promise you we'll only discuss you. And the only thing we'll let you know is that Buckley was, very, very homosexual in lots of varied ways. Let's just say, Weaver winced, that by looking at this box, we were certain Buckley would have had loved the baton thing and might have even been able to take it all the way up in there if it had been eased and greased in. The chief looked back down at the shack. Right there where he rested his feet, where Buckley got out of the bed to put his penis in his pants every morning, was a worn spot. The chief had his feet on the spot of a horrible killer, a policeman mass murderer. He thought about that some more and stood up and tugged the loose parts of his slacks. As he rose, pinching and pulling at them with the tops of his thighs, he formulated part of the plan. Tell everyone to tell no one. Not a thing. You all stay here with me. We're going to clean this up for Buckley's family and for public faith in the Milwaukee Police Department. We have to squash this. In the meantime, tell the coroner to call me on the dirtiest rear payphone inside the Southside Kmart in an hour. Camp House, gather up all the incriminating evidence you can find in the apartment and burn it in the incinerator in the basement of the police station. I'm going to step out in the other room and talk to Carly for a while. Carly turned around and walked out of Buckley's bedroom. The chief put his hand on Carly's shoulder as they walked out of the room. They walked to the far corner of the kitchen. Carly, the chief stated. Often he would state someone's name plainly to emphasize seriousness when he was going to have a sit-down with them. I never expected this time of day would come so soon. The day when all of us, both trusted and most trusted members of the police department, have to sit back and hope they can trust someone. Today that someone is you. He pointed at Carly and touched him lightly on his breast. Obviously this is a difficult situation, don't you see? This horrible police officer is the very same serial killer all the faggots and queers have been telling us all about all along, and we never listened. Never, the chief said loudly, as he paused to indicate his important opinion. Let a homosexual know he is right. You have to ease them on the idea that their ideas and opinions are actually valid. It's not too often, he added periodically, that they are right, but this time they are. But this thing we can't let anyone know about. He drew a big breath and spoke sharply. Don't you ever say anything to anyone about anything. If you do, I'm going to beat you and beat you and beat you until you can't lift your arms and legs up off the ground. What the hell does that mean? Asked Carly disgruntledly. I don't know. What the hell? The chief said as he oofed his head with his hand. He had never had anyone respond to him like that after he said such a scary statement, but somehow it made the chief like and trust Carly a bit more. Look, it just sounds nice and scares most people. Carly had been run over by a truck once, so he guessed he kind of knew what it was like to get his ass beat that bad. Ick, Carly said as he scrunched his nose up in the air. His eyes grew intense, and he looked up at the chief. It's okay, Chief. We've seen some crazy shit, but in all seriousness, I think the Buckley image is pretty funny. I'm going to have a hard time doing anything but laugh about it now. Good job, the chief said strongly and badly. You might make it, kid. Also, it's entirely appropriate to laugh about the individual image of a police officer killed over in a tin can with a baton sticking out of his butt. While Camphouse and Weavers are in Buckley's bedroom cleaning, I'm going to let you, the chief corrected himself, not wanting to sound too much his life. Would you pretty please, with sugar britches on top, go around to the rest of the house and see if you can find some other things the two officers might have missed. They are top-notch and have been with me a long time and seldom make mistakes, but if you find anything, we will buy you a Moondo's coffee a day a week. Carly never did like that big corporate caffeine dealer, but since he was now banned from a Rabbit's Cup, he figured he better not mess things up with Moondo's. John Stewart says the corporate people are creepos and psychos, and we should unite the citizens to stop them. Okay, Chief, Carly sighed. I've got this. You can trust me. On this occasion, especially nothing, said the chief. I'm going to talk to the other officers and iron out the details so we can smooth things over. Okie dokie, said Carly. Don't say that, the chief corrected. Blinkett says that. And if you ever use a Right in the Rain tablet, we're all going to secretly laugh at you like we do Blinkett. Plus, you'll be the one making it rain. What I mean is, I'll have you pass out note after note, and every page costs $1. Is the writer's rain tablet a pill they use to treat carpal tunnel syndrome? Carly asked the chief. Never mind, said the chief. You'll find out. Then he walked into Buckley's bedroom with the other two officers and closed the door. About 30 minutes later, they walked out, following the chief as he strode forth confidently. They had formulated a decent enough plan. Let us discuss it with Carly, the chief slurped deliciously. First, Carly, did you find anything? I found a bag of what I surmise is methamphetamine, Carly said as he held a bread-twisted bag of whitish chunks. I found it glued beneath the table with some nicotine gum and also a pair of ambergris-colored granny glasses. Good job, the chief coach Zed. Then when he was a teen, Girl Squad 9 and 13 sold used office cookies out there on San Fernando Road and assumed a $30,000 loan at 15.25% and put a little payment on a 2-bedroom place. He waits like Tom. Sorry. Tom Waits references. Got caught up. A week's worth of Granddaddy cold brews, 8 white sugars, light cream, no ice, is on us. Proud of you, son, the chief said, reaching out and putting a hand on Carly's girly arm. No, thank you. I'll take 4 straight shots of espresso per day instead. Something had happened that made him lose his taste buds for cream, but he kept mostly silent until the corporate jerks floofed. We'll all get a cup later this evening. We got a long night ahead of us, gentlemen and women folk, said the chief as he looked at Weaver and Camphouse and Carly and at the kitchen dinette set. Let's go to the cereal table of a serial killer and discuss. They all looked at him and thought, oof. The chief said, floof. Never mind, Chief, the chief said to himself. It was a bad pun. They all sat down as the chief began to speak. The first part of the plan comes with rig autopsy results. Not giving a single fuck anymore, the chief picked up Buckley's rotary phone and twirled it, talked on a landline now instead of later at the Kmart payphone. With one pay phone call, the chief said it like Tim Gunn. Make it work. I'll have the results of the autopsy in an hour, the coroner replied. Thanks, Stewart, said the chief as politely as he could. The plan was to say that the piece of government property jammed in Buckley's butt had nothing to do with his death. They made their way back to the precinct for an all-officers meeting, except the trusted and most trusted, which were all out on patrol. They didn't need for anything to be explained to them, and DBD did as they were told mindfully. The truck was in the hall beside the waiting meeting room with the 3 officers that had been in Buckley's house, awaiting the autopsy results. The chief got the call. He picked up the phone. "Stewart, what's up?" "Well, it used to be Buckley's butt in the air with a baton and—" The chief cut him off. No, Stewart, don't." He started laughing. The fact that Brett Buckley was a monster made his fate a lot funnier. "Just tell me what you found, and don't get me started on some Buckley butt humor." The 4 officers looked around at each other emotionlessly as the coroner explained their results. "Buckley died whilst choking on a talkie," said Stu with a smirk. No one was in the room with the coroner as he talked to the chief, so he could smirk all he wanted. Also, no one was looking in any crash windows to see him if he did. "Wait a minute, what the hell's a talkie?" the chief asked. "El Salvadorian with the food cart makes them," said Stu. "He rolls up some small tortilla shells and fries them. Then he dips them in some of the nastiest hot sauces ever, rolls them in some of the dirtiest dirt and cigarette ashes, and butts them on the floor, and puts them in them ovens, and dries the sauces off gallantly, and sells them for $5 a bag to a bunch of stupid, floofing idiots." Ugh! No wonder Buckley was died while choking while eating while patrolling. That sounds disgusting. The chief really liked the talkies, but was too ashamed to admit it. "Indeed they are gross," agreed Stu. "I've actually seen a case where a woman's gut got rot out most of the way before she died of the chemical stores on her organs." The official story is, whilst choking on a talkie, Brett Buckley staggered about, shaking and twitching, hit his head on a fire escape ladder, and fell in the trash can, suffocating his face hole on a tied sack of trash. The chief thought hard. He was hoping the coroner was going to have all the bases covered, especially for the question he was going to ask next. "So the baton injury occurred post-mortem?" "Yes," said Stu. "Then what about the blood that oozed out of his butt and around the toilet?" the chief springed. "Ugh," moaned Stewart. He couldn't have let his boss and dancing buddy down. "Well, Buckley was fat enough that the pressure from his limp body against the wall of the trash can farted it out. There were significant gastrointestinal injuries from the baton, but they weren't because of the cause of his death." Stewart knew that the best thing about his scientific job was that he could throw some great big 50-cent words around and speak confidently, and people would believe anything he said. "Oh," he added, "the case from the other day with the male prostitute found in the Milwaukee dressed as a girl." He paused for certainty. "Another case of a trans girl with dick swimming drunk in the middle of the night. I can't seem to figure out why a lot of them do me like that. It's a bit dangerous. The burn marks on his face were the direct result of the many cigarette butts brushing against his face as he floated in the Milwaukee River." "Thank you, Stewart," the chief added before he hung up. "See you in the Golden Corral conference room on Wednesday evening for line dancing." The chief later explained everything away to the waiting officers in the meeting room of the police station. Mission success, he gathered them. All was explained. The peoples were placated. No one was embarrassed, and most of all, not a single soul was asking any questions. So that's Hard Times, and that's unedited, just, oh well, I guess we'll see. And I hope you enjoyed it. It's not meant to be taken seriously. Bye.